Hello, this is Ariella Carmel at Calcalist's Mind the Tech conference in New York. I'm joined by Len Rosen, the CEO of Evercore's Israeli business. Thank you for joining me, Len.
Thank you for having me.
So can you start off by telling me a little bit about Evercore and your operations in Israel?
Yeah, okay. Evercore is the leading independent advisory investment bank in the world. We've been operating in Israel since the very beginning of 2020. Before that, I was the CEO of Barclays Israel, and before that, the CEO of Lehman Brothers Israel. Our biggest business is M&A. We're very much involved in the equity capital markets and in private capital raising, among restructuring and a bunch of other things.
Okay. So I'm really interested in hearing from you about how October 7th and the ongoing war has impacted the capital raising environment for Israeli companies in the short term.
Okay, so from October 7th until now, the capital markets have been essentially shut, which is not very surprising because the capital markets have been shut to technology companies around the world. There have been a few attempts at IPOs. They haven't been well greeted. We expect a wave of IPOs globally in the near future. And we expect Israeli companies to be among them. With respect to the prospects, look, a lot of people will tell you and a lot of people will show you charts that say that the capital raising environment and the IPO market for Israeli companies is incredibly resilient. And Israel, as we know, is incredibly resilient. That we've been through this before, that there have been wars and terrorist attacks and the markets have moved down, but they quickly come back. On the one hand, we haven't been through this before. This has been a shock to the system, such as Israel hasn't experienced since 1973. And in 1973, it took 10 years and 400% inflation for Israel to come out of it. Very different environment, very different world. We have already seen that after a 20% drop in the in growth, negative growth, in the last quarter of 2023, the markets have the GDP has started moving upward. The shekel is now at a high that it hasn't seen since last summer, 3.56, I think. The Tel Aviv Stock Exchange is doing well, and the Israeli companies traded on NASDAQ are actually, if you take the top 10 companies, they're actually trading better than the NASDAQ 100. So there certainly is a lot of resilience.
And in terms of the long-term implications for capital raising, do you have a similar sense of optimism? What are you seeing?
So I think as far as the capital markets go, and the IPO markets, when markets have been shut in the past and have reopened, Israeli companies have done very well. An example is Verint, which came one of the first companies after 9/11 to its IPO, a deal that I did. A company called Ormad, also one that I did, which came to market after the markets were shut for a while. And they tend to do well. It's still to be seen whether there will be some re-education necessary for the global investor universe. For a long time, there was something called an Israeli discount. We eliminated that over a long period of time to where Israel is now viewed as Silicon Valley with an accent. Are we still at that place? I hope so. May there be challenges? There may be.
And what about the impact on the M&A environment? What are you seeing there?
In the M&A arena, again, the markets have been shut since October 7, with two exceptions. Two cyber companies that sold to Palo Alto. Palo Alto has Israeli roots, and the cyber companies obviously are of a technology that is a high focus right now. If I were to bifurcate between strategic and financial buyers, we are seeing both looking around. And we're seeing both looking around very, very heavily. On the strategic side, Israel's fortunate because the big acquirers in tech world all have operations in Israel, all or virtually all. NVIDIA, Amazon, Apple, Intel, Microsoft all know Israel. So it's not going to be a big leap of faith for them to say, hey, let's go into Israel. Intel already has invested in a new fab or in recent months, since October 7th. So we think there'll be good opportunities there. As soon as things calm down, they're already calming down a bit. Let's hope they don't, reignite. In the other half of M&A, which is financial sponsors, they're also very actively looking. And they're going to be looking for value. Israeli generally are not going to be selling at discounts. That's true for many things, and it's true for companies. But the numbers the rubber will hit the road somewhere. And, as Warren Buffett said, there are just not a lot of great opportunities in the world. And when there aren't a lot of great opportunities in the world, you look where the opportunities are.
Right.
And Israel is such a place.
Okay, well, on that optimistic note, we're going to close the conversation, but thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.